Remain seated, please. Permanecer sentados, por favor.
To all who come to this happy place, welcome.
Our largest single-theme land expansion ever.
Now we want you to share with us our latest and greatest dream.
Matterhorn Matt presents Matterhorn Mondays.
Yes, welcome everybody to episode 161 of Matterhorn Mondays, coming to you all live. I don't know why I say this every time. Coming to you all live from the outpost, whatever that means. You guys can interpret it as you would like. But I'm of course joined by my co-host to my... That's my right. To my right, but it's my left hand, Jeremy.
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Welcome, Jeremy. And we are once again joined by Mr. Freddy as well from the Imagine Tomorrow podcast. Glad to have Freddy back. Freddy, why don't you go ahead and say hello?
Hi, everybody. I'm really excited to hop on this episode, in particular, being able to talk about what we're going to talk about today.
Yeah.
As a California native, I'm really excited.
Yes. We're very excited. Well, Freddy, I guess before we continue things on, why don't you go ahead and give a little rundown of the kind of content that you make, because you do make content, apparently.
Might as well. So I host the Imagine Tomorrow podcast. I'm also hosting a podcast called Freddy's True Life Adventures, which is a mini-series documenting a recent trip I took to Walt Disney World during COVID. So documenting that sort of experience, saying, hey, this is what it's like during a pandemic. It was also my first time going to Walt Disney World, so documenting all those attractions and experiences,
Nice.
talking about, their different qualities, actually being able to talk about these things with firsthand knowledge rather than just reading articles and watching YouTube videos all day. So now being able to say with confidence that, Flight of Passage is my favorite attraction in the world. It's the greatest ride I've ever been on. Stuff like that. Saying Pandora, the world of Avatar, is the best theme park land, hands down. We also visited Universal Orlando, so we will have that up on the podcast as well. So these episodes are dropping every Tuesday and Thursday as I move through them. And I've been having guests on like Matthew Carano, who directed the Halix documentary for Defunctland. I've had Alicia Stella from Theme Park Stop, and Jalen Harvey. So, I'm just getting all these different people on board to have these really great conversations about the theme parks that we love. So, yeah.
Very nice. Very interesting stuff. Congratulations, Freddy,
great.
for visiting Walt Disney World for the very first time. I guess it's sort of suboptimal conditions to be visiting for the first time, but, either way.
Well, it's suboptimal in terms of having everything open,
Sure.
but in terms of having crowd limitations and social distancing, it's, at least for me, it was actually quite comfortable. It was more comfortable than going to a grocery store here in Southern California, because go into a Target, half the people aren't wearing masks. You go to Disney World, the moment you take a mask off, the cast member starts sprinting towards you to yell at you. It's great. I love it.
Very nice. Very nice. Well, all of Freddy's podcasts will be linked in the description for all of you lovely listeners and viewers to listen along at home. And Freddy, glad to have you back. But before we move on to any of our topics today, it is of course time. I do believe we have a very special birthday this week. Today, actually. Let's see. We left off. Yeah, this is today. Today, the 15th of February, is none other than Lillian Disney's birthday. So happy birthday to Walt Disney's late wife, Miss Lillian
Long-time
Disney.
viewer.
Yeah, long-time viewer of the show. That's true, probably. But then this upcoming Wednesday the 17th, we have Jake Earth's birthday, as well as Charlie Mack's birthday. Happy birthday to both of you. And if you'd like to add your birthday to our calendar here, you can click the link in the description below, the Google form, and you can submit your birthday, submit your name. You guys know the drill. And last announcement here. You guys also... Well, yeah, you guys haven't been leaving many voicemails recently. We've been kind of disappointed over here on the show. We miss hearing everybody's voice, but 575-386-5814 if you'd like to call in. Leave a voicemail. We hope to have some great voicemail-worthy topics that we're going to be talking about today, especially the final topic, which we're excited to get into. But, yeah, lots of exciting things planned for this evening's episode, including our promised DCA 20th anniversary retrospective, late retrospective.
Let's do it.
we're doing it
About a week late, but whatever.
It's better late than
Doing
never, as they say. But before we get into any of that, it is, of course, time for this week's Matt Snaps.
A whole wide world of knowledge awaits underneath the cap. It's once again time this week for Matterhorn Snaps.
Matt Snaps is back, and I switched it up this week. This is Mango... Not great lighting. Mango Madness, everybody. And this is sadly a plastic cup. Plastic bottle, sorry.
Oh.
So, yeah, we're not going to get one of those great, glass bottle snaps, but hopefully this will do for you guys. If I can move my mic without it unplugging, let's see if we can capture a good snap on here. Oh my gosh. That was nice. Oh. That was unexpected. Nice snap from this plastic bottle.
Yeah. Very resonant.
Yeah.
Had a lot of bass.
It did have a lot of bass, Jeremy. Yes. This is real fact number 386. New York City's public school students represent about 188 different counties. Jeremy, as a resident New York liver, can you agree or disagree with that fact there?
I'm sure it's true. I went to high school or public school in LAUSD in Los Angeles, so the whole different thing there.
Well, I guess Jeremy's not a true New Yorker then. He's been lying to us this whole time.
I'm not. I am. Yes, I'm a liar. Yes, I'm a liar to myself. I lie to myself above all.
Oh no. Comment down below, you guys. 1 like and Jeremy will stop lying to himself. But it's time for this.
If it was that easy, it'd be great. Get over a whole lot of range of issues.
Guys, like the video so Jeremy can I don't know what I'm trying to say. Anyways, guys, it's time for news from the Peak.
We now present to you news from the Peak.
Did you guys know, fun fact, that's Jeremy's voice doing news from the Peak. I bet some of you newer viewers didn't know that.
They know.
They probably know at this point, but there's one of you guys out there who didn't know that. But yeah, we got our first bit of news from the Peak here today. The Mandalorian actress Gina Carano fired from Lucasfilm. The actress and former MMA fighter Gina Carano has been fired from her job on the hit show The Mandalorian after transphobic and anti-Semitic social media posts. Carano previously came under fire in November after tweeting transphobic comments and sharing misinformation regarding face masks and, of course, voter fraud. And last week, Carano shared an anti-Semitic post comparing the treatment of Republicans in America to Jewish people during the Holocaust. And then after she shared the post to her Twitter fleets, #FireGinaCarano began to trend, which it was trending a few times before that incident as well. So, that's always good news. Eventually prompting Lucasfilm to release the following statement, quote, Gina Carano is not currently employed by Lucasfilm, and there are no plans for her to be in the future. Nevertheless, her social media posts denigrating people based on their culture and religious identities are abhorrent and unacceptable. So, Jeremy, what are your thoughts here on, Gina Carano getting fired from her position on The Mandalorian? Or from Lucasfilm?
Listen, it's a whole range. Well, yeah, from Lucasfilm entirely, right? There's a whole range of reasons why someone would get fired. It's not like the case with Chris Pratt where you have the whole production team backing him up as a person. You're not really seeing that happen with in the case of Gina Carano. But yeah, I mean, personally, I find what she posted for months to be just totally ignorant. There's a whole kind of debate of, should someone be fired even if their views are abhorrent? I don't really know where I stand on that, but I do know that it was, I think, appropriate for Lucasfilm to take the stance that they did. And I'm Jewish, and I mean, personally, I found, that post is just way out of touch and out of line. Yeah. Am I hurt? Am I offended? No. But it is not okay, and it's those types of analogies can be damaging, and yeah, Yeah.
Yeah.
So goodbye, Gina Carano.
Goodbye.
Farewell.
Freddy, what about you?
It's simply a case of looking at, it's not just somebody's personal beliefs. It's when that becomes offensive to somebody else. When it's not just that you have some personal belief that you keep within, but it's that you actively share that belief and that you put it onto other people. And her active discrimination against the trans community was really first step. That was going too far. And now it's kind of come out in the media over time that there were some meetings afterwards, and she had signed something saying she wasn't going to do anything political on her social media from that point forward. And Disney is a company that can't take, you can't come in here with your baggage and bring that to Disney. Disney can't defend that, and Disney won't defend that. And, there's a very clear line between somebody like Chris Pratt, who has conservative beliefs, but he doesn't actively discriminate against people. And on top of that, he has his entire, he has all his co-stars backing him up. And as was previously mentioned, Gina Carano simply does not have that happening with her when it comes to The Mandalorian. In fact, she had already been sort of ostracized from the casting crew before this even really came out. But really, it was the recent, posts on social media that it was almost like she wanted, to clearly be fired. And she's actually taken advantage of it to try and make a movie deal with Ben Shapiro. So,
well, we'll see how politics. That goes.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. And I think it's no coincidence how subtle and downplayed her role became in the second season of Mandalorian. I was sad to see Carl Weathers' role be even more downplayed, but hey, he directed last season. But
I think it's just a shame that her character Cara Dune was impacting people, and people cared about the character. It's the actress.
It is a good character on the page.
It's a good character. Yes, it's a good character. I would love to see that character move forward. Even a recast, I think, is still an option if they really want to continue that character forward. But Gina Carano is a problematic person and has problematic beliefs that can hurt people. And so she just simply cannot remain in that role, which is what we've seen happen.
Absolutely.
But, things are going to move forward. I don't see a major impact on anything due to this, really. I think they'll just move beyond it. And, we might not even see a mention of the character from now on. We'll see.
Yep. Well, goodbye, Gina. She will not be missed. Did you guys see that there were petitions for Don Cheadle to replace Gina? Because how Don Cheadle replaced War Machine in Iron Man 2. I thought that was pretty funny. They should do that. That is
funny.
I think they should do that.
Honestly, you can slot him into any franchise and you'll make it better. So
yeah, that's true. I would make it even better. Well, Jeremy, what do we have here for our second news from the Peak?
Yes, our second piece of news from the Peak. This is actually kind of interesting. I love this one. Space Mountain history book released in Disneyland Paris. A new book entitled Space Mountain: From the Earth to the Stars has been released at Disneyland Paris. The book is the third in a series examining the history of Disneyland Paris's attractions. Other books in the series include Pirates of the Caribbean: A Treasure of an Attraction, and Phantom Manor: Attraction Decrypted. This book explores the history of the classic Disneyland Paris attraction from its creation in 1995 all the way to today. I wish they'd sell it here in the States. These books sound great and right up my alley, right up everyone here's alley, for sure. So I wonder if I can try to get my hands on a copy.
You'd probably pay.
So from the press release, as far as I know, it will be available. It's not a limited edition run, so it'll be available in Disneyland Paris and in their version of Downtown Disney for the foreseeable future, and they'll keep printing it.
Nice.
These books, they do come in both French and English, so you can't, you don't have to worry about, I'm just buying the images. No, there's actually some history in there and some information that wasn't widely known previously or was, sort of hidden away. Right. I had the pleasure of interviewing Tim Delaney on Imagine Tomorrow, and so you can go back and listen to that episode. And I am actually looking forward to getting my hands on this book. In fact, I've contacted a few people and kind of hopefully develop some sort of chain by which I can get one delivered here to the States. And my hope is to get it signed by Tim Delaney.
Nice.
That would really be it. I would frame that book.
That'd be
great. But there's some concept art in there, even for the previous version of Space Mountain, back when it was going to be Discovery Mountain itself. and a large indoor space that has not been previously released. So there's a lot of interesting things in there. I can't wait to get my hands on it.
It's so cool how we started to reach this point. I've been kind of talking about this for a little bit of like, now we have all these books about a bunch of the second generation Imagineers in the same way that, you know, we have all these books celebrating the first generation. So it's great. You know, I consider this, you know, a Tim Delaney book, a book about Tim Delaney's art and concept. And that's cool to see how we're starting to talk about these figures in the same way we talk about the OG crew.
Yeah, very cool. I will have to get my hands on this book as well. But for our final bit of news from the peak, very sad bit of news from the peak here, Charles Boyer, Disney legend and artist, has passed away at the age of 86 on February 8th of this past month. Boyer accepted a temporary job as a Disney artist in 1960 and became the park's first full-time artist and eventually its master illustrator. He would create lithographs, oil paintings of retiring employees, and promotional art for the park. His notable works include Partners in 1981 and Triple Self-Portrait in 1978. Yeah, very sad news, Mr. Charles Boyer here passing away. Jeremy, you didn't know the man personally, but what are your thoughts here?
No, I didn't know too much about him. Sadly, but you know, those are two very iconic paintings utilizing Disney imagery, especially, I mean, both of them are, but especially Triple Self-Portrait is a classic sort of Disney image. So, yeah, it's always sad to see someone from that generation of Disney artists pass away, you know, but it's great. And I think those especially those two paintings will be a part of our popular culture iconography for a long time to come.
Yes. Freddy?
I think it's really, you know, it's sad whenever any of these artists pass away. I think it's also sad that we don't really hear their names spoken very often. And until we don't know that we have them until we lose them. And you know, I'm glad that now they've started to promote their artists. You know, I've seen that D23 has been releasing articles upon the passing of many of these artists, and even now has done a lot of work to start promoting them through the Disney fan community, which I think is good. And they're going to continue to do that into the future. But, you know, to see some prolific artists passing away at this time, it is the sort of thing of, you know, you don't know what you have until it's gone. So, you know, even once we finally are out of this pandemic and it's easier to, you know, go back to these conventions and go back to these, you know, sort of fan meetings, it'll be exciting to see, you know, sort of us seeking out these previous artists, this history, this past, that we've kind of let go to the side over time. You know, talking to some of these Imagineers, they always point to all the other artists and all the people behind the scenes that you just don't hear about. And really those are the stories that we really need to look at that are just not being told right now.
Yeah. Well, I was supposed to bring up the images, the Partners in the Triple Self-Portrait. I will edit that in here over my voice, so you will see the images once this re-releases. But yeah, can we all get a big F in chat for Mr. Charles Boyer passing away at the age of 86? Yeah, it's kind of weird. It's kind of weird thinking about all these original sort of artists and Imagineers, how we're going to be feeling in like however many years when like Joe Rohde, age of 120, passes away. We're going to be...
That's good. 120 is great.
That's great. Don't manifest.
I'm still knocking on wood.
Sure, I'll knock.
Yeah, my desk is made of wood.
Well, yeah, that does it for this week's news from the peak. And like I mentioned, we do have a great episode today. But first, coming up, the Disney quarter earnings are in, and we will, of course, sift through the fat and give our thoughts on how Disney plans on starting its financial recovery this year, and then social distancing, park reopenings, and travel restrictions. That's the theme of this week's COVID Rundown. And finally, California Adventure at age 20. We will reminisce about our personal DCA memories through the ages and share our thoughts on its history and future. Very excited to get into our final topic today, but of course, it's time, everybody. Question of the week. And I say this every week, but if you guys would like to make a theme song for Question of the Week, it doesn't have to be like a rock song like Matt Snaps. It can be, a classical.
I'm
thinking
it could be a rap.
That would be pretty cool, I think.
It could be a totally new genre that you've been experimenting with that is at the precipice of being known. I don't know.
It could be in Morse code. I think that'd be pretty cool.
It could.
Probably not. But question of the week, everybody. We actually had a lot of questions submitted from last week's episode, or I guess like after last week's episode, these questions were submitted. So shout out to everybody for submitting questions this week. This is question of the week. Each week we answer one of the burning questions that you've always wanted to ask, from outrageous hypotheticals to hot takes and beyond. The choice is yours. And this week, the question comes from none other than Avery. Do you think Eisner saved or ruined Disney? That is our question of the week today. And as Freddy is our guest, we might as well start off with Freddy. What are your thoughts here on this week's question of the week? Do you think Eisner saved Disney or ruined it?
Mm-hmm. It's undeniable that he saved Disney. That his actions in coming into the park, both the investment that he brought into the theme parks around the world, and in terms of animation and the way that they invested to create the Renaissance, that was all because of Eisner and his presence there and the way that he directed funds and moved things around. There were definitely problems, but at the same time, we wouldn't have the Disney we have today without Michael Eisner. I think that also something to look at is pre Mike Wells or Frank Wells passing. So, the pre-Wells era with Michael Eisner and Wells working together and making the company what it is, was incredibly successful. And it was after Frank Wells passing that Michael Eisner and the company began to falter a little bit up until when Bob Iger took over.
Yeah, very well said, Mr. Freddy. I will have to agree as well. I mean, you could make the argument both, but I think you could make the greater argument that, he saved Disney. He didn't necessarily ruin it. But Jeremy, what are your thoughts?
Well, if he ruined Disney, we wouldn't be... I mean, we might be sitting here having a conversation about, this company that used to exist that doesn't exist anymore.
Yeah,
undeniably
Disney would have been defunct land.
Exactly. Undeniably, he saved the company from being essentially bought out and sold off in all of its many parts. I mean, that's just absolute fact. That being said, I mean, zooming out, it's kind of a sad state of affairs in the sense that Disney was this studio, this independent studio that was churning out its own work. Now, post-Walt, I mean, Ron Miller played around with diversifying even more than Walt did in his day in terms of creating different labels, creating different studios. Within Disney, though, it's not anything being purchased and, operated under the Disney as a parent company. But Michael Eisner does, it's sort of, if you can't beat him, join him scenario. In order to save Disney, he did have to set the company on a course of being a contender for the growing, this is the 80s, and we still have the residue of this in an extreme way. Joining the rest of how corporations were becoming much bigger and bigger, more powerful. So he had set a Disney on a course for it to become basically the multinational corporate conglomerate that we have today. A huge turning point of that, of course, was when the Walt Disney Company acquired ABC. It's a huge deal. I know we look at things like the Fox merger and the ABC acquirement. It seems like nothing, but that was a huge deal then, and it kind of still is in terms of corporate history. So it's a twofold thing. A lot of people, myself included, kind of look at Disney becoming this huge multimedia conglomerate. A little bit of its soul had to be kind of removed in the process of doing that. But undoubtedly, though, the company was saved from a financial perspective under Eisner. And even creatively, he understood how to, and learned, I think, over time, how to let the creative people do their things and how to support them. And one thing I love about Eisner is that he didn't surround himself with yes men. Tony Baxter could go to Eisner and say, no, you're wrong. Let us do what we do. And, he would be willing to listen to that. So Eisner, with time and age, I think the Disney community has really recognized his value as a CEO.
Yeah, well said. Very great question from Avery. And again, if you guys would like to submit your question of the week, link will be down in the description below. Like I said, we got a lot of questions from this last episode, so we're very excited to hear what you all have in store for us next time. But Jeremy, it's time for our first topic of the day. And what would our first topic of the day be exactly?
Our first topic of the day is, I guess, a relatively big topic. I didn't spend as much time with it because there was a lot to process. But with the first financial report of 2021, Disney begins strategizing recovery. Last Thursday, February 11th, the Walt Disney Company released its financial earnings for the first quarter of fiscal 2021 and held the year's first earnings report webcast. CEO Bob Chapek spoke confidently about the company's ability to recover and adapt throughout the rest of the year due to the recent major restructuring near the end of 2020. Chapek emphasized the importance of their newly adopted DTC first, DTC meaning direct-to-consumer, business model, and highlighted how this strategy has already set the stage for a 2021 recovery. The Walt Disney Company's major restructuring near the end of 2020 centered around creating two major divisions, or really creating one major division, but having two major divisions. Disney Media and Entertainment Distribution, DMED, as it is referred to, and Disney Parks Experiences and Products, DPEP, as it's referred to. DMED's priority as a division is currently centered around direct-to-consumer content. In the earnings webcast, Chapek touted the division's success not just with the heavily popular Disney Plus streaming service, which has hit 94.9 million subscribers, but with the highly anticipated international Star service set to release later this month. Chapek said, quote unquote, "We're confident that with our robust pipeline of exceptional high-quality content and the upcoming launch of our new Star-branded international entertainment offering, we are well-positioned to achieve even greater success going forward." And Chapek also revealed that 2021 would see the continued exploration of how best to use Disney Plus for distribution in terms of what movies get theatrical runs, Premiere Plus access, or immediate release with a standard subscription. Chapek also expressed optimism on the DPEP front, citing that the parks have continued to refine and perfect their operational limits due to COVID. As a result, attendance has increased, seeing their previous $2.6 billion loss decreased to only $119 million. With increased demand comes challenges in tackling supply, which Chapek noted regarding restructuring the Disneyland annual pass system and how it will serve as the division's experimental playground in rethinking how to best match supply with demand. Nothing is set in stone for any developments in the DPEP division as COVID surges on, and Chapek made it very clear that most changes will depend on vaccine rollout success. Although there appears to be optimism on the park's ability to return to pre-COVID levels of success in the next few years, Chapek emphasized that the company's primary attention will be on the new DMED division, with expected decreased spending for DPEP. Chapek discussed ongoing parks projects both here and around the world, including Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, Guardians of the Galaxy Cosmic Rewind, Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway for Disneyland, and Zootopia Land for Shanghai Disneyland. However, these are all projects that have already begun construction or are already finished and ready to open, and there was no mention of any strategy in progress for future projects down the line. With the first earnings report of the year complete, the Walt Disney Company's transformation is well underway with its new direct-to-consumer division. The parks will always be part of the picture, but maybe not in the starring role it has been in the past. Now, it should be mentioned that Chapek didn't really mention anything about projects on the horizon, which I don't really know would be something that would even be done in a an earnings report release, because the focus is on what has just happened, on here's why it has happened, and here's what we hope will happen as a result of what's just happened. So he didn't mention, even movies that are set to release this summer, or even in fall. So whether or not that means that there's no projects on the horizon for the parks, I don't think it does. But the fact that he did mention that the parks division would receive decreased spending makes me think there's so many projects that are on the chopping block. So that's where that comes in. But yeah.
As far as the earnings report, you're spot on there, Jeremy, in terms of it not really impacting like future, at least the lack of talking about future projects is simply because the earnings results wouldn't be the place for that conversation. I mean, the fact that the only things they're talking about are the things that are currently under construction and currently taking in budget. And in the next quarter, they will continue to see that's where the spending's going. The big part of the conversation was that Disney Plus has hit 94.9 million subscribers.
Yeah, that's crazy.
And one analyst now predicts that by 2026, Disney Plus will have more subscribers than Netflix. And that's like at current pace. But with the Star program on top of that, is going to eat into Netflix's worldwide subscriber base very quickly. So in the end, it's a complete win for the company, even though Disney Plus hasn't been an immediate profit maker for the company. They're still, they're still not making money, especially with the amount of investment they're spending in it. But very quickly, it's going to end up being a case where they're bringing in as much money as Netflix was. And the reason Netflix was as successful as it has been. In terms of the parks, that whole 50% decrease in spending was something we already knew about. They just keep reiterating it. We knew that they had announced, they were cutting back on all that spending. They had already, made the Mary Poppins attraction disappear from plans. They've already taken things away. Not that these things won't happen eventually, but that they're just nowhere near close enough to beginning construction. And until things get back to normal, we just don't know. Currently with Disneyland, if Disneyland opens in the summer, if it opens at any point in 2021, it will be making a profit by 2022. It'll only take about a year for the sheer amount of demand that we have here.
Absolutely.
Even downtown Disney today was clocking in around a 4-hour wait just to enter into downtown. So that should give you a perspective on the level of demand that we're seeing here. The demand to get into these parks and to get into Buena Vista Street, even just to shop and dine, is insanely high right now. And the way our numbers are going, we're vaccinating more people than are even catching the virus by a wide margin at this point in California. The entire state should be vaccinated by July. That's the state's goal. And they are being incredibly efficient. I actually volunteered this past weekend at a vaccination site, and they're not throwing away a single vaccine vial. There were previous reports at the beginning that they were throwing away vaccine, but they're at a point now where they are completely filling that up. They are not leaving a single vaccine vial to throw away. So they're fully using that supply, and the fact that the US government just bought 200 million more vials is going to be enough to pretty much take care of the country in 2021. And that optimism, that sort of like, it looks like we might be nearing the end, was something that you could even see Chapek was excited about, even when talking about parks, because this entire thing about not spending the money in parks is all dictated on the fact that they are not making that amount of money. But the moment that the vaccine has been effective and the virus is no longer a part of the conversation, the demand in the country to go to these theme parks is high enough that it will bring that money back. And I currently predict that we will see a lot of investment in the parks, especially starting in 2022. I'm getting a sense now that there is a lot of conversations going on when it comes to WDI. Of course, the staffing's limited. They even sort of talked about the fact that the reason some projects aren't getting completed is simply there aren't enough Imagineers to accomplish all these things.
Right.
But I don't expect that to be the case, too much longer after the pandemic is over. And that really comes from planning. And actually, once you start seeing that demand, they can start to plan out when can we invest again in these projects, in particular Disneyland, will be a lot quicker to return back to a semblance of normal and invest in projects than Disney World will.
All right, very nice stuff. I'd like to sort of circle back on the Disney Plus subscriptions. What was let me pull up the number here that we said. 49 million subscribers. I have an article pulled up
94.
here.
94.9.
94. Excuse me, 94.
94. Almost 100 million subscribers.
Almost 100
Almost
million
that, yeah.
subscribers. And I have an article pulled up here that says one of the projections from when it first launched that Disney Plus would have 75 million subscribers by 2024. So that's kind of mind-blowing to think of
it's surprised
how fast.
everybody.
Yeah.
They didn't know that Mandalorian and now WandaVision and all of the content on there was going to be so appealing. Even this past week in analytics, WandaVision is the #1 show on television across streaming platforms and cable. It's drawing the most eyeballs. Part of that is a weekly release strategy. The fact that we have to wait from week to week and suffer through that, and then the moment you finish an episode, you start texting your friends and you're all talking about it. That is exactly what Disney is able to cultivate that Netflix has not been able to do. Netflix, you do the binge watch model. People talk about your show for a weekend and then it's over.
Yeah.
And the problem with Netflix that they're having is they don't have enough shows of high enough quality to compete against something like The Mandalorian. Netflix can pump out a lot of content, but right now a lot of that content isn't getting filtered. And even the content that's coming out now is kind of in the pre-Disney Plus era in one way or another. Now that The Mandalorian has come out, is the sort of thing that Netflix needs its own Mandalorian. It needs its own show that it can release week to week to compete against Disney. And at this point, it might be too late. That's the real thing, is that I don't see them having a property to compete against Disney Plus. And I even think that HBO Max, as that moves forward, that they will start to develop shows that equally start to cut away at Netflix. And eventually you start to see all these things sort of flatten out and they all have, sort of an equal piece of the pie, as long as you're able to keep pumping things out. But until you have another Stranger Things season coming out, there's not a lot to, really pull people over there.
Yeah.
That's a great point. Yeah.
Sorry, go ahead, Jeremy.
No, that's an excellent point. Now, I've even said kind of like controversially, I think by the end of the decade, I think there'll be bids for who's going to buy Netflix. And I hate to say that because I don't like
it's going to be Disney.
Everything being owned by one company. But here's where I like to give Netflix credit. Original content. Like people, writing their own series, getting, it's like I love that about it. And I'm hoping that they're able to at least change the strategy, especially like a release strategy, and really keep their eyes on who is new, good, young blood that can write just absolutely fantastic television that can compete with the big leagues now, like Disney, who rely on content that they've required. Of course, WandaVision and Mandalorian are incredibly originally crafted shows. They're creatively done. But I'd hate to see other companies feel that to get the competitive edge would be joining the acquiring content phenomenon as opposed to curating new voices and new content.
Sure.
So if they can, but then that's like catching lightning in a bottle. And unfortunately, the way the market works for the entertainment industry now, fostering genuinely new voices is a hard bet. It's a hard bet, but I think it's necessary. And I hope that the production companies that do that are able to survive.
And Netflix has the money to compete. They will spend the money in order to compete, and they have the creators to do it. And there's plenty of shows. They're announcing shows every single day that are interesting and fascinating, new original concepts. They even have some concepts that, like Assassin's Creed that they're working on that are, some properties that are at least known, even though they're going to take a different direction in terms of how they tell that story. That's something unique and separate. Really, it's competition, and that's not a bad thing for Netflix because Netflix has been getting stale. And I think that's the big problem, is that Netflix was comfortable where they were. They were comfortable just throwing money out the door and not really caring about quality. And when Disney comes in with their machine, they're able to consistently pump out things that interest people. And now Netflix needs to figure out how to do that. And I believe that Netflix will. They are a draw for creatives in the industry, and there's a lot of money going there. And so, in the end, I think that it's just going to end up being a good thing, them battling each other, just like Universal versus Disney has been a good thing. We'll see how that goes. But I do think that, you know, we're in for an interesting time when it comes to the streaming wars.
Oh yeah.
Well, I guess circling back to park stuff, no mention of the Tron coaster in this quarterly earnings report, even though there were mentions of Guardians of the Galaxy, of course, Remy's Ratatouille Adventure, which I guess doesn't really count since that's already technically done. But yeah, what do you guys make of no mention of the Tron coaster? Do you think no opening this year? Do you think it's getting pushed back to 2022? Freddy.
I can speak towards this. So
I'm sure you can.
Tron is definitely not opening in 2021. You know, even when I was there and looking at the construction site, you know, they're still working, they're chipping away at it, but it's clearly a resources issue. They just don't have the budget to keep moving forward on it. And Disney has to pick what they are going to complete and where they're going to put their energy and resources. It's also a staffing thing of the amount of people that you have employed to work on these projects and how you can keep them safe in terms of social distancing and you know, even something I started noticing was break rooms are popping up. The Starbucks on Main Street in Buena Vista Street has been walled off as a break room for cast members. Wow. And this is purely because now it is a thing of, like, per the government, they actually need to have these spaces available, because otherwise you can't just cram all your workers together in tight break rooms. You know, you need to even give them space. And dealing with just the COVID parameters is also something that just slows construction down. So yeah, Tron is definitely 2022. Guardians, actually, the fact that they have the coaster vehicles already there on their tracks, I wouldn't be surprised if they're testing the same way Velocicoaster is. I think that Guardians actually has a shot of being in 2021 if it can get the budget to open in that way. You know, now they've started going full speed ahead on the entrance of the attraction. Even when I was there the first day we were at Epcot, there was plywood over all the solar panels on the roof. On the last day, they had taken off the plywood and it was the blue wrapping on top of the solar panels. So they are moving quickly on getting that thing ready to go. I wouldn't be surprised. Really, again, it's resources and money. If they wanted to spend the money, they could open that for the 50th anniversary in October. I think that their biggest hurdle is reaching that date. It could soft open in December. I know that that's been a rumor that's been spoken around, but Tron, there's no hope of that being done this year. It's really that far behind.
Well, I don't really necessarily
I
see
can
that
imagine
as a
that
big loss, because, you know, you already have Space Mountain there right next to it. I mean, of course, everybody wants to ride Tron, but I don't necessarily see Tron opening next year. Technically, it'll still be in the 50th anniversary because, you know, it lasts like a year long. So technically, it'll be open in time. But yeah, I'm excited.
Yeah, if it's anything like Disneyland's 50th, it'll last 5 years.
Oh.
So
it's a decade. It's the 50th anniversary decade.
That's true.
Yeah, pretty much. From 50 to 60. Yeah, exactly. Then the 60 really lasts like a day. No, yeah, that's an excellent point. Yeah, I can see them, and also I can see them want to prioritize Guardians of the Galaxy for Epcot simply because Epcot needs that e-ticket back, especially to that side of the park. I remember there was such a stark difference in terms of crowd flow and like queue length between when I went in 2015, when that side had its all three attractions functioning, and like when I went in 2017, when, like, you know, there's no Universe of Energy and Test Track is down half the day as usual, and there's only Mission Space. So it actually affected queue. Like Living with the Land had, you know, like a 2-hour wait, and, you know, Soaring is like, it affected lines around the whole park. And that was like a huge lesson to me in, you know, having variety of different types of experiences affecting crowd flow, even if it's an attraction you assume to be not popular anymore, like Universe of Energy was at the time, but it affects it. So they really want to push for having that side of the park even out the crowd flow from the land, the seas, Imagination, and, you know, all of World Showcase. I also found it, well, what was interesting though is with no mention of Tron, I'm curious how long they think it's going to be delayed, because they had no issue mentioning Mickey and Minnie's Runaway Railway and saying 2023. as a definitive goal, you know?
And I can bring up why, and that's purely because Runaway Railway is like ahead of schedule at Disneyland. It was already an attraction that was supposed to open in 2022, and I know there's no one really taking pictures of it or anything like that. But even if you drive over the freeway by Disneyland, you can see that building.
It's getting work.
The building's almost done. The building's
great.
done.
Wow. Okay.
So it's the sort of thing that, like, even though their biggest hurdle is the inside, is like they're going to complete the outside of the building. That's going to be done. They can't begin any work until the parks open, really, because they need to do testing. They need to do this and that. In order for them to do that, they need to have everyone back. They need to have maintenance back. They need to have cast members back.
Right.
So you can't really move that far ahead with making the attraction until things return to normal. But at the same time, it's an attraction that's moving forward quickly. And for the announcement, they don't want to just only talk about Disney World. They want to talk about Disneyland, because even Disneyland not being open is holding back the stock price. The day Disneyland is announced to reopen, the stock is going to shoot up by like $20. Like that, it has a large impact because Disneyland is near LA. Yeah, buy now, people. Disneyland. Every single market analyst is telling you Disney's a buy. You know, again, beating Netflix by 2026. Like, it is going to rule the entertainment industry. Put your money in. There you go.
I already lost so much money.
Let me open Fidelity real quick. You guys continue on.
Disneyland's a stable buy.
Yeah,
you know? There you go.
It is. I actually do already have like Disney stock, but very, very little. It's more of a spiritual buy, but I think maybe I'll do an actual lucrative buy. I also found it interesting. Yeah, no, go on.
It's a case where, again, you do have other projects on the horizon. You have the Princess and the Frog attraction. You even have Jungle Cruise, which from the announcement, it sounds like that whole refurb, that whole redo was supposed to be done this year in 2021.
Sounds so doable. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, you're announcing. I mean, they're announcing it in 2021. They said it's going to be done by the end of the year. So, you know, it's opening for the 50th anniversary of Disney World. And I guess it will be, you know, Jungle Cruise will be closed when Disneyland opens, and it'll open at some time around the holiday season. So things are still happening that they didn't cover.
That's true. Right. And they didn't mention Princess and the Frog in at least, you know, I zoned out and I was listening to some of it, but I don't remember them mentioning Princess and the Frog attraction when I was listening to the webcast. And I found that interesting as well, because we kind of keep hearing, and you know, 2023, and then, you know, sometimes you're 2024, 25. So that one's also a very unclear timeline as well. But again, if again, it goes back to what you're saying. It all depends on vaccine rollout. If we're able to like get this thing under control by like a year from now, yeah, I mean, 2023, 2024, those are all doable timelines. Yeah.
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 Well, this was, of course, the first quarterly financial report released in 2021, and we will, of course, be doing follow-ups, all the following ones, because of course these are very interesting times that we're living in, especially for the company. But I'm excited to hear that some of these projects are still happening, still moving forward. I forgot Mickey Minnie's Runaway Railway was coming to Disneyland. I'm glad they're still doing that. I'm very glad that they're still doing that. But
oh, me too. It'll be so refreshing. Oh, it'll be so great. It's going to work so beautifully at Disneyland.
I'm so excited. But before we get into our final topic of the day, and I guess COVID rundown before that, coming up, DCA 20th anniversary retrospective, as well as our weekly COVID rundown. All of that after our brief sponsor commercial break. If you guys are wondering where you can find even more family-friendly live streams just like this one, head on over to theliveplace.com. The Live Place is your headquarters for great family-friendly live streams. They cover anything from Disney to other vacation spots, various variety shows, and have some amazing streamers like Resort TV 1 and myself. Also, be sure to check out puckermint.com, where you can find amazing pins and stickers. Puckermint is based out of Albuquerque, New Mexico, just a few hours from where I live. And since I'm a big believer in supporting local artists, we decided to partner up. Be sure to use the coupon code down below when you make your next order. Again, that's puckermint.com and puckermint on Instagram. And we
Oh,
are back, everybody. Yay. But, like I said, we have a little bit of COVID rundown to get to before we get into our final topic of the day. So let's go ahead and get into this
week on Matterhorn Monday, Matt and company continue their reports and discussions on COVID-19 and its impact on the Disney company around the world.
Yeah, dance party.
Yay, COVID.
Well, welcome everybody. COVID rundown for our first headline today. CEO Bob Chapek believes social distancing policies will be significantly relaxed by 2022. Second headline, Hong Kong will lift COVID restrictions this Thursday, and Hong Kong Disneyland will likely announce reopening very soon. That's good news. And finally, White House clarifies that no decision is planned on restricting domestic travel. Travel to Walt Disney World is expected to resume as normal. If you guys are trying to book your vacations out there, that's probably good news for all of you. But it's time, everybody, for our final topic of the day.
There she is.
Do it.
There she is in all her glory. Disney California Adventure 20th Anniversary Retrospective. We're a week late, but that's okay. I don't think, we're glad that we're having this conversation.
It's never too late to celebrate.
That's true. Oh, I guess we should preface this.
Let's do our toast.
I haven't opened my
We wanted to do a
bottle
toast.
yet,
We'll do it. You wanted to do a second Matt Snaps.
Yeah, this is our second.
So Matt Pops.
Matt Pops, I guess. It's also not really like one of those wine bottles with a cork. It's just like a fake wine? I don't know. It has alcohol in it. That's all that really matters. So I don't think these are really hard to open, so we might be here for a while. Oh my God.
Well, in the
It's
meantime,
gonna be a classic moment like the grilled cheese. What?
Jeremy, what are you drinking?
Oh, what am I drinking? This is just straight up brandy.
Classic.
Yes, I
I'm
can just-
happy.
yeah.
I'm having the hippopotami Thai from Trader Sam's, homemade, of course, in the Javito Mojito mug from Jock Lindsay's Hangar Bar in Walt Disney World, which I procured on my travels. It is based off of Raiders of the Lost Ark with the pedestal that has the golden idol on it from the movie, and then a bamboo shoot, because that's what goes through Javito when he tries to escape without Indiana Jones. So poetic justice, I guess, is delicious.
I said this before the show. That's one of the coolest cups I've ever seen in my entire life. I'll have to.
Yeah, it is really cool.
Sometime.
It tells a story.
It does tell a story. That's amazing.
does.
All right. Well, I got it open. It wasn't a snap, and I hurt my hand because it was very hard to
Oh.
open. So we can do a toast now to DC. What are we, Jeremy? What are we toasting to today?
To DCA, to Disney's California Adventure. What a time to be alive, to be able to watch this baby grow from the first summer to where we are today.
From a parking lot.
To it's right. Well, from a parking lot. Exactly. To DCA, the notorious problematic DCA, may she one day find her footing, and may she, that's it. May she one day find her footing, and stand the test of time. Cheers to you all.
Cheers, everybody. I don't have a cup to drink this in, so if you see me drinking straight from the bottle, don't be worried. I'm fine.
This will be a little teaser for Matterhorn Mondays After Dark.
Which is still
Matt,
coming,
it's
by
time
the
for
way.
me to introduce you to mug culture.
Yeah.
Culture. Come on,
No,
man.
I have
Get into it.
I
buy
have
buy some
my-
expensive mugs.
I
Another
have
way to
my,
give your money to the mouse.
My Oga's Cantina one, but it's not clean, and I just brought it out for visual. I was going to pretend to pour it in here, but I didn't want to deceive the viewers, so I'm just drinking it straight from the bottle, sadly. But that's okay. That's okay.
That's okay.
It's okay. Yeah. Well, I guess we can get started with the topic today. This past February the 8th marked the 20th anniversary of Disneyland's notorious second gate, Disney's California Adventure. Opening in 2001, DCA has gone through so many changes over the years, and many of us and our viewers got to see them all got to see them all. So journey with us now as we take the time machine back a good 20 years and reminisce about our good old friend, California Adventure. Almost unrecognizable if you had only been once in 2001.
That's crazy.
And then you come, like last year, say. Almost unrecognizable. So I guess we can sort of start off here. DCA 1.0. How do we start this conversation, Jeremy? What should we start with?
I don't even know.
I guess we should start with what are our thoughts on DCA? Love, yeah, I guess what are our
in general
thoughts?
or DCA 1.0?
We can just start with 1.0. What were your guys' overall thoughts? I can't necessarily speak towards this because I was 3 when it opened, and I don't have a lot of memories of it, but I'm gonna be hopefully recalling some here for this episode. But starting off with Jeremy here, what are your thoughts when you first visited DCA 1.0 looking back today?
I was very upset the first time I visited DCA 1.0. I was like 6 years old, right? 7 years old. But I was upset mainly because my parents had planned, this is like the first summer, actually probably earlier than that, probably close to when it first opened. But I was upset because my parents had planned a full day at California Adventure 1.0. You give me that look, but you have to understand that nobody knew what was going to be behind those gates.
That's fair.
I was upset because I was a Disneyland obsessed child, and I was like, we can't go that close to Disneyland and not even step foot inside Disneyland. So I was upset. And this is before Park Hopper, okay? So we went to DCA, and I guess my memories of that first trip are very vague. But what I will say is, first time with a crowd full of people as well for the first time, going on Soaring over California. That is a highlight of Disney history that I got to experience. I know it's kind of corny when everyone applauds now, but it's probably because they too remember that opening summer of 2001 and everyone being just totally astonished and astounded. I will never forget my first time on that ride. And it's not just like the first time going on, it's the first time collectively with everyone around you going on it for the first time. That was just a remarkable experience. I actually don't think that was topped until Flight of Passage. I think there's a similarity there. Where too, it was like, everyone's like, what did I just experience? That was absolutely incredible. I can't believe it. I'm blown away. I'm speechless. And that's the Disney difference, my friends. And the fact that an attraction about that had nothing to do with IP could do that to people, it blows me away every time. And in fact, it's why I consider it to be the last great, at least of what I've experienced, original Disney attractions.
Nice.
So there was some good, right? There was some good that opening summer.
Some good.
Yeah.
Freddie, what about you?
I'm not sure if I was there for that opening year or not. That far back into my childhood is like, I don't know, but I do remember going to DCA 1.0 as a kid early on in the park's history. So I remember Sunshine Plaza and seeing the Burbank train, the Burbank ice cream train, and like thinking that was so cool. And then Condor Flats, that was awesome because you had Soaring over California, which was always a fun attraction. I was always nervous whenever we got the top, like whenever we got the front, and then we would go all the way up to the ceiling because I was like, oh no, we're gonna go all the way up. Taste Pilot's Grill with the plane, bursting out of the building. That's impressive. Grizzly River Run, getting drenched on that was an interesting experience.
Yes.
I don't remember as a kid riding the original, like when California Screamin', like when I was a little kid, like couldn't go on that.
Same.
But I remember hearing the spiel. I remember seeing the coaster launch. I think I even remember seeing the wave machine working at one point.
Nice.
Same.
And just hearing the Beach Boys music, the classic Paradise Pier Beach Boys music is something that brings me back to that original version of the park. All my memories of that park and of that time are really sort of hazy, but also like really positive. Like I don't remember having a bad experience at California Adventure as a kid. And I was also too young to really care in terms of its thematic quality or anything else. It was just a fun place to be. And those feelings definitely help like build a sense of nostalgia for the park. It's not like I want to go back to DCA 1.0. I actually really appreciate the park as it is now. And part of that appreciation comes from having a good experience as a kid and remembering what the park was and what it is now and thinking, wow, it's just gotten better over time, in my opinion. You know, of course, Hollywoodland was something that it's like, I just don't really remember any of that. And, you know, I definitely did not go on Superstar Limo. I think that wouldn't have been an attraction that my parents would have put us on either, but you know. So fortunate.
I know.
I pride myself with that. You know, be like, I went on Superstar Limo.
You put it in your
multiple times.
I think by the time I went to the park that it had already become Monsters Inc. I'm not sure.
Wow.
But it is the sort of thing of like that, you know, I remember the Sunshine Plaza. I remember the California postcard entrance. And just talking about DCA 1.0, like, even though everyone laughs at the whole idea of building a park based off of California in California, you know, everybody laughs at it, but that's like a theme park trope of like theme parks are built in states and celebrate those states' history and what is special about that state all the time. Go to Gatorland in Florida. I don't know. There you go. But you know, there's parts where, you know, even Knott's Berry Farm is celebrating the Old West history that links to California. It's one of those, even that entire park celebrates California history. Like, go look at the whole pier segment that they have there. They even have a Route 66 segment. Like, you know, these parks, especially in you know, many states, they all harken back to those previous eras and celebrate their states. And for Disney to do that with California Adventure, it made sense then, and I still think it does make sense now in terms of having a second gate there. It might not be as interesting as something like Animal Kingdom or Epcot. You know, Westcott would have left a big impact on people, I think, and it you know, sadly, I do think it would have ended up similar to Epcot is to, you know, how Epcot is today, with feeling irrelevant and now needing that transformation. And I think experiences like Soaring over California and even the whole Grizzly Peak area are things that made that park special. You know, I like the idea of having a reminiscent, you know, an old timey pier that calls back to ages of yore, you know, ages that we don't experience. I know Walt might not have been happy about seeing that in a theme park now, but you know, looking around today, we don't have classic, you know, boardwalks like they used to. And so now that has become a part of nostalgia, the same way that a Main Street has become nostalgic. And so to have a park that calls back to that, even with Pixar the way it does now, it still connects back to that, and it still has some meaning to it. And we'll get into it with you know, DCA 2.0, but you know, there is an ongoing discussion of, has California Adventure left its roots behind and become something else entirely? And I would argue that it has not. That it is still a park about California through the eyes of your favorite intellectual property, because that's how Disney likes to do it now. But still, they'll occasionally put out Soaring over California, and they'll, you know, you can still go through Grizzly Peak and see, you know, the wonders of nature in California. Even the Cars Land segment that we have now calls back to car culture, which is essential to California itself. It's a special park. It's something special.
Yeah, you know, I agree with Freddy. I went as a very young child, so I don't necessarily have any fond memories of like experiences, but I don't ever remember having like a bad experience at California Adventure when I was a kid. Like Freddy said, I never cared about like the theme, all that kind of stuff, you know, because I was a kid. I was more excited about the roller coaster, which Freddy just mentioned. I can't remember off the top of my head. The big
California
Screamin'. There we go. There it is.
Yep. Wow, you're forgetting about it already.
I'm forgetting already, you
that
guys.
Fast.
I was going to say Incredicoaster, but I knew that wasn't right. And Freddy said something. Freddy said something that brought back just like some vivid memories for me. He was talking about hearing like the countdown from the launch at I forgot it again already. California Screamin'.
And
the countdown.
We're not going to tell you.
And not the Neil Patrick Harris version, the old Surfer G version. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
I was referencing the Neil Patrick Harris version, but yeah, just that sort of, when you said that just brought memories back of me as a kid hearing that and always wanting to go on that ride because I was too small. I wasn't tall enough to ride it. And then of course, when you eventually reach that age, you can experience it, and then you see your picture, you know, if you're with your dad or like your mom sitting next to each other. It's great stuff. And I also am very sad that I never got to experience Superstar Limo, although I probably would have been too young to remember it. Even if I did go on it, sadly. We should bring it back, I think, in DCA. But yeah,
I have some friends that would completely agree with you. They're Superstar Limo stands. One in particular.
Superstar Limo stands, yeah.
Unironically?
Unironically.
Oh, wow.
Nice. And it's
Wow.
that actually brings me up to something, and I'll just drop it now, that
Okay.
once I'm done with the current run of the Marvel theme park universe thing that's also hyping up something that's in California Adventure, we are going to do a series that I will not be hosting. That there's a friend, Andy, who's going to be hosting it. And she is a massive DCA 1.0 fan. And it is going to be a podcast called California Dreamin'.
That sounds fantastic.
That'll be reminiscing about California Adventure and just celebrating the park. And even though it didn't hit the 20th anniversary of the park, it is during this time of doing it, and thinking about it, really, that it's like, you know what, I really do like this park and it's important. Which I think we can move things forward into the way the park is today. Yeah. When I came back, I actually had some time that was spent living overseas. My parents were missionaries in Indonesia, and then my mom worked at the cholera hospital in Bangladesh. It was Bill Gates had funded that hospital. And we came back to the US in 2012 so I could start high school freshman year. And at that time, we bought a Disney annual pass. And so I experienced California Adventure in 2012, right when it had reopened, when it had opened Buena Vista Street and Cars Land was there. I remember being there, the summer Cars Land opened. And that's the way that I've really latched on to that park. Is ever since then, I've just really enjoyed my experiences there. As long as I could avoid Bugs Land, everything else is great. I have a thing against
okay.
Bugs Land
Autumn's
for
not
some
listening.
Okay. But it's one of those things of that park means something to me. And I don't think I really realized that until recently, even pre-closure, with Galaxy's Edge opening and Rise of the Resistance, Disneyland was getting pretty busy. And so California Adventure was definitely an easier park to go in and navigate and have a good time at. And the more I went into Disneyland, it was more like, I want to go over to California Adventure. I want to go have some fun. And to realize that when I went to Disneyland, it was like I was going to Disneyland because I was taking it seriously. Like, this is like a serious thing. I'm coming here to feel those nostalgic feelings and all of that. But I go to California Adventure and I'm just here for fun. It was getting in that mindset. It's like I get to the hub, and which park am I going to choose? Well, it depends how I feel that day. Do I want to go sit on the Disneyland Railroad and ride around twice and get the Grand Circle tour, or do I want to go ride, Incredicoaster and Guardians and Grizzly River Rapids and Soaring? What do you want to do? What's your feeling? And California Adventure is a park about fun. That's the way it is now. It's about having a good time and celebrating things with your family and just having some thrill. You could go to Six Flags and have some thrills, but you're not going to have as good of a time in terms of your customer service and quality as you would have at California Adventure.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think the viewers did. I don't think Maddie did. I don't even think it'll make it to the final episode.
I heard part of it, but that is very tragic. Okay, we should be back now.
It was great.
Hello, stream. We're back.
We are back.
We're back, right? Okay. Are we on?
We survived.
We're live?
Hello, we're back. Type in chat if you can hear us and see us also, please.
Let us know. Are you there, chat?
Basically, I have my tiny, minute, very minor quibbles with Guardians, but I think it's if you kind of be okay, I understand it's literally it's an overlay, but it's apples and oranges. I mean, it's apples and oranges, between the two attractions. And listen, we could have a whole other conversation just focusing on Tower of Terror versus Guardians Mission Breakout. But I want to focus more on details, detail differences between
Jeremy,
1.0, 2.0.
I hate to interrupt you, but before we continue, we do have a voicemail from Mark.
Oh yeah, let's do it.
I would like to get to. So, yeah, we have a voicemail. And again, 575-386-5814 if you'd like to call in. Maybe if you have like a personal anecdote you'd like to tell about DCA 1.0.
Oh, yes.
Maybe if you rode Superstar Limo, call in, tell us what you thought of it.
I'll try to recount my Superstar Limo memories too, but they're vague. But yes, I want to hear from Mark.
Let's hear what Mr. Mark has to say about DCA 1.0, or DCA.
What's up, guys? Mark here from TASG. Just calling in. I just want to leave one of my favorite memories of DCA 1.0. Well, there's a couple, actually.
Yes.
One of my favorite ones has to be the SS Rustworthy, guys. The broken ship that ended up being a little water play area and all that stuff. And also, Main Street Electrical Parade turned Disney's. I mean, that, like, bringing that back to DCA and seeing the same thing happening to Paint the Night was very interesting to say. I don't remember how long it has been between both shows, but it's very interesting, their parade situation over there. It's a little bit tougher to see a parade. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Mark. Great voicemail. Yeah. I have vague memories of that water area, and I remember like a few years ago I was thinking back, like, did I imagine there being like a water play area in DCA when I was a kid? Did I just dream that, or was that real? But it turns out it was real. So yeah, thank you, Mark, for recounting that lovely memory. And again, 575-386-5814. Call and tell your stories. But anyways, Jeremy.
Well, I think really quickly though,
Sure.
hitting on the Electric Light Parade. The first time I saw the Electric Light Parade was at California Adventure.
Yeah, me too.
I think me too. Yeah.
And that was an interesting thing because that's what I always recalled, was going and seeing the Electric Light Parade and watching it with Paradise Pier in the background.
Mhm.
And that was the way I experienced the Electric Light Parade. And so then every time I was in Disneyland, it was never as interesting as it was when you had Paradise Pier in the background, because it was just all the lights. In the case of Paint the Night being sort of a reflection of that, I never thought of that, in the same way. But, in the same way that the park opened and they used Electric Light Parade to pull people in, 2012 happened, and then after the Diamond Celebration, they brought in Paint the Night in order to bring people into California Adventure, and that was also the same time that they were doing Pixar Pier, I believe.
You guys speaking are
sense.
bringing up so many memories of just me watching the Electrical Parade.
That's what
in
this
DCA.
episode. Oh, okay, there you go.
Yeah,
That's what this is about. It's about reminiscing.
This
It's
is a
about
beautiful
unlocking those
experience,
memories
you
that
guys.
you thought were gone.
I thought they were gone, but they're still here. Yeah, and it's funny, I guess just very briefly, I have very vivid memories of watching this these vacation planning VHS tapes that they would, like, the travel companies would send out. I have one from 2000, I think the year DCA opened, I used to have one from
I have one
era.
from then as well.
And I can, like, recall that word for word. I used to watch that all the time as a kid. And, one of the highlights, of course, was DCA, because that was the new thing open at the time. And, just random thing. But anyways, someone was...
Yeah, Mark just mentioned Golden Dreams, which I wanted to talk about. I guess it's kind of like a niche attraction now. It also is like a notoriously hated attraction. I loved this attraction. Okay, I'm just gonna say it. I loved it. Now, I know a lot of people don't like it because it was originally going to be really high budget, a la American Adventure. Like, it was going to be an audio animatronic, huge cast of audio animatronic figures going through the history of California, and it ended up just being a movie with Whoopi Goldberg playing Calafia, Queen of California. I still liked it, though. It was American Adventure for California light, ultra light, but I enjoyed it. I enjoyed it as a kid. It's one of those niche DCA 1.0 things that I have very fond memories of. The score was great. I liked it. Another very, 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 very niche DCA 1.0 thing. First of all, were the original Steps in Time shows, is what they were called. This was at the Hyperion Theater. There were two versions of them. The first one was really I forget what the order was. It was either the first one was so humiliatingly bad that they replaced it with a better version, or it was like the first version was really good and they replaced it with like the humiliatingly bad version. I forget the order of operations.
It was the humiliating one first.
Yeah.
It was the humiliating one first.
I think I actually remember the humiliatingly bad one more than I do the second one. But after that, there was a show that was actually just like an outside show that they formed a partnership with Disney because they also did a version of this show at the American Gardens Theater in Epcot. But The Power of Blast, which was basically just like DCI, like, you know, like the marching bands, you know, like the really competitive marching bands, but like a lot of them from around the country like formed basically like a troupe and put together this really awesome show that I loved. I know some people don't like in terms of DCA history, but I loved it. I thought it was really impressive and great. If you can find video of it, I think there's a couple good shot ones on YouTube, but I loved it. Very niche DCA 1.0 thing that I have extremely fond memories of. The Power of Blast.
It's very niche. I don't remember.
I loved very niche. I mean, you'd have to live through it to really know what it is. But Seasons of the Vine, another niche DCA 1.0 thing, show about, you know, Napa Valley. I liked that as well. So all these niche things. But anyway, I remember, you know, watching the park grow and change was an exciting thing. I mean, this was like not a time where there'd be a change to DCA and you'd be like, I can't believe they're changing that. You know, when they announced that they were going to redo Sunshine Plaza and make it Buena Vista Street, that was like really exciting. Really, really exciting. When they announced Cars Land, it was really exciting. Like the last changes to theme parks I can remember that I like thought were really exciting were that transition from DCA 1.0 to DCA 2.0. And I gotta say, I mean, this is a majority opinion, but I really loved that peak of the park, is what a lot of people call it.
Mm-hmm.
In 2012, when all of the pieces of the puzzle of redoing the park came together, and it was a really nice place to be. It wasn't cringe. The cringe was removed.
Yeah.
And
Thankfully.
it was Buena Vista Street was wonderful. Cars Land was great. The new Paradise Pier, themed to more of like a 1930s Californian pier, set to like old vintage Disney cartoons like Silly Symphonies and the old Mickey Mouse cartoons, worked seamlessly, worked perfectly. It worked so well that I think it's why so many of us were confused why Pixar Pier became a thing. I loved that version of the park, and that was like, you know, one of the last fond memories I've had of that park was that first summer of DCA 2.0, you know.
And that was definitely like, that was the peak of the, you know, I agree with that being the peak of the park. I think that every addition that they have made to DCA, including Guardians for me, as much as that confused people and people were like, oh, they're taking away Tower, I was actually pretty excited at the time that they announced that. Although I did see the wide, you know, like, oh, what are they doing? And I'm like,
yeah,
I kind of like those movies. I'm pretty excited. But I completely agree that like everything was great, and then Pixar Pier came along, and then a slightly drunken John Lasseter came on stage at D23. It's funny to look back at his announcements during that D23 in particular and seeing that guy is clearly not sober. But he was very excited about Pixar Pier, and there are, you know, conversations that he was the one who pushed for that like strongly. And Pixar Pier was confusing. They were building it, and I was like, okay, I can see what you're doing. I actually did like the Blue Sky Cellar conversations that they did about the pier. The way they presented the pier in the Blue Sky in the Blue Sky Cellar, though, which it is a great, you know, experience. I love when they refresh it. I wish they had done it with Avengers Campus, and I think we would have had that if we didn't have COVID.
Yeah.
Which I feel bad that we missed out on that, because that would have been cool. But I think that with the Blue Sky Cellar, they did at least a good job of communicating to me at that time what they were doing with Pixar Pier. Of course, they had been assigned, okay, you have to put Pixar in the pier. How do you do that? And showing the research that they had done in terms of taking old pier aesthetics and even adding more of that to Paradise Pier, because as much as the 2012 iteration had added things, there were some things that were exactly the same and just a sign had changed. The major aesthetics of the pier had not changed since park opening. And that's where Pixar Pier had a major impact, was actually in adding some of those things. Some of those elements are even from the Tokyo Toy Story Mania area. Some of those towers and peaks that they've added in are pulled from that and put into Pixar Pier. The biggest issue with Pixar Pier was the budget. They actually had another spinner ride that was supposed to be like the droid from The Incredibles that was supposed to swing you around. It was going to be the jetpack system from Shanghai, and they had to pull it due to budget. Basically, the entire budget for Incredicoaster that was originally written down became the budget for the entire redo of the pier.
Wow.
Which is why you can credit every issue with Pixar Pier. All comes back to the fact that they paid for the entire thing off of just the coaster's budget alone.
That's crazy.
And that's that's the problem is Pixar Pier is still in a stage of development in my mind. Even after it opened, they were still doing work on it, and it still hasn't finished. Even when COVID happened, they were still going around and painting and adding new things. I think that Pixar Pier is an ongoing project that won't finish for another decade, because I think that it won't finish until the entire area, including Pixar Park, and now even the possibility of an expansion taking up the Paradise Pier Hotel, which will definitely become Pixar Pier Hotel. Even that entire parking lot that's currently the downtown Disney parking lot is an expansion pad for something in the future that you could put something there. But Pixar won't stop at just where it is now. And even what they have now is still going to get changed over time and updated. I think the one time that Pixar Pier clicked for me was when I was in the downstairs area of the Lamplight Lounge. And I was sitting there right along the water, and I was looking at it. And I was looking at it, and I'm like, the soul of Paradise Pier, if there was a soul, arguably to people. I mean, I definitely attached to it something. The idea of that fun in the sun, California on the beach, is still there. You might be experiencing it through Pixar characters, but it's still the same original concept. Even just the idea of most Pixar films end up having that fun aesthetic. Even just the beach ball, like the logo of Pixar with the beach ball. It's a beach ball, like Pixar Pier. There are definitely confusing things, and out of anything in DCA, post DCA 2.0, Pixar Pier is the biggest disappointment. But honestly, when you're looking at that as the biggest disappointment, it is not that bad compared to most things that have existed in Disney parks. It is not the worst thing we have ever had. And I can deal with it as long as we continue to see better future developments. I think that Avengers Campus is going to be a test of that direction, because Avengers Campus is calling back to Silicon Valley, which is a big part of California now, is the idea of technology and the way that it's influenced us. Avengers Campus represents a new iteration of Tomorrowland through the aesthetics of Silicon Valley development. It's the idea of we're going to go with Spider-Man and all these young heroes, and they're developing technology to enable us to become heroes. There you go, Silicon Valley. So we'll see how that works out in terms of the baseline aesthetic and how that connects to DCA. Already, in terms of just walking by it, it looks beautiful at night with all the lighting going on. It'll just be exciting to see how that is. I'm excited to go to, the PIM test kitchen and go to the microbrewery and have crazy, enlarged and shrunken food. I think that it just continues the atmosphere of fun that the park has possessed from its inception. And yes, that it might have been confusing, but I think as it's gone along and as Imagineers have worked on that park, they've sort of found the soul that was there all along.
Huh. Very well put.
Yeah, well
I've never
said
heard
there,
anyone
Freddy,
go. Yeah, that very well put. I've never analyzed these new decisions like that before, but you've sold me a little bit.
Not all the way, Navy, but let it sit in.
Not
let it
all
settle
the
a
way.
little bit. Yeah, listen to the podcast. I got to start talking about this. I got to pitch the park.
Yeah,
link down below.
I mean, I love DCA. I mean, it's a park for nostalgia. I think for a lot of young people who grew up with watching the park grow. So I'm one of those people that it's not that I prefer DCA 1.0, but I have a fondness in my heart for it. I don't prefer it, but I have there's a fondness for it because it was I don't know, you look at Disneyland in its opening year and it's not a perfect park by any stretch of the imagination. You know, I'm not saying Disneyland in 1955 was the equivalent of DCA 1.0, but I think the analogy kind of still stands. I mean, you even look at an aerial shot of Disneyland in 1955 and you're like, oh my God, there's nothing there. There's nothing there. What is there even to do? You know, so it does take a 2.0 and a 3.0, and I think DCA has a long future ahead. It's only 20 years. She's only 20 years old, and we'll see. We'll see where she goes. Imagine when DCA turns 50.
Oh my goodness, it's gonna be a completely different park. There won't even be a Hollywood Land anymore.
Oh my god.
Maybe not.
I hope not. Yeah, well, I guess DCA, I'd like to touch on the Grizzly Peak area. I think you guys mentioned Grizzly, that sort of area of the park, but that was always my favorite, by far, area of the park, even before the 2.0 transformation. The whole, I have a lot of memories of going on Grizzly River Run, and my family would always complain about the water smelling very bad when it, you get soaked in the water. They'd never want to go in it because it's always smelled for some reason. But yeah, I don't know where I was going with that. I just like to give some praise to the Grizzly Peak area of the park. It is definitely
love that area.
I wish there would be like a whole park dedicated to that, just like that Redwoods back theming. I guess I could just go to the woods in California to be the same, but
let's
Grizzly Peak is the only area that has made sense from the beginning. And even though it has changed from the whole whitewater rafting dudes sort of aesthetic to more of a national park aesthetic, in the 50s and 60s, it has continued to be the most beautiful, and it's the area of the park that you want to just go and enjoy. And to take a little bit of that national park aesthetic and just put it in the middle of a theme park really feels, special. And even when they changed Condor Flats into the Grizzly Peak Airfield, which originally I was kind of skeptical of because I liked Condor Flats.
I did too.
The way that it has continued forward, so when you're on Buena Vista Street and you turn right and you move, straight into the woods, that entire segment is it's beautiful and it's so well done. And it's one of those things of, again, you just want to kind of sit there and enjoy and just take in some nature. It is one of those things I've heard people that was like, man, I wish they would just take Grizzly Peak and put it over in, in Animal Kingdom. I'm like, well, I'm glad I have it over here in California. I can experience it wherever I want. It is a special place. It's something in DCA 1.0 that worked and has continued to work all the way through. The only thing I could potentially see as in terms of an improvement to the area is simply adding some sort of animatronic or a few animatronics to Grizzly River Run. I know that at one point, people were like, all right, let's test these Country Bear, Jamboree characters out, and you've seen them kind of hanging out around Grizzly Peak. I think that's always been an idea of, what if those cave areas, you just put in the bears and they were just, playing along as you went down the river. I think that's the only thing that attraction kind of needs. As much as it is an original attraction, it is one of those things. It's a bare bones river ride, and as much as you're going through the woods, and an animatronic bear or two could help a lot. But otherwise, it's a fantastic area.
Yeah,
I love it. I mean, listen, Country Bears. There was a rumor for a very long period of time, not too long after the Country Bears left Disneyland, that it was going to move to California Adventure, because it closed a couple years after California Adventure opened. And the rumor for even that, I remember hearing it as a kid, oh yeah, no, there's talks of putting the Country Bears, the actual show, in Grizzly Peak. And I thought that was a great idea. I still think it's a great idea. And first of all, it's a cult classic. It'll be very, very well received if it came back there. I don't know where they would put it, but I even love your idea even more of why not put those characters that Disney fans know and love, and put a show scene in the Grizzly River Rapids.
Yeah.
I mean, think of Calico. Think of the Calico. ride. Think of the log ride there where you go through and it's the hootenanny and there's some bears up in the hills, bears up in NorCal having a good time. I think that's the only way I could see those characters being brought back. I experienced Country Bear Jamboree in Walt Disney World, and I can definitely say that attraction is definitely going to end up falling under some sort of refurbishment.
Well,
at some point
here's
in the future,
the thing: what you saw was like a truncated version of the show. It's like
that's true.
Most of the show is not there.
Yep, I can tell.
The structure is so off, it ruins it. I still like it, but no, it's like worse than the truncated version of the Tiki Room that we have today.
But I think that the characters, the way the characters are, in terms of their design, aesthetic, and everything, would totally work well. Even just the introduction of Humphrey the Bear as like a character in Grizzly Peak was very interesting. I was like, okay, that's an interesting thing to put in there, and it definitely calls back to an older piece of animation. Even adding the spiel from like the park ranger from those cartoons as the spiel for Grizzly River Run, which was a silent change to that attraction. Just another detail that we're adding in there. It would be very fascinating to see the Country Bear Jamboree just chucked in there, and just you go through and it's just a fun time now all of a sudden. I was like, that it's an idea.
Fantastic
we'll see what
idea.
happens.
That would be amazing.
Throw a few animatronics there in a cave. How hard can that be?
Let's do it.
Fantastic.
I will dress up in a bear suit and do that.
It'll be another case. It'll be another case of a Mark Davis show, the figures of a Mark Davis show moving into a water ride.
Yeah. Very nice. Well, before we continue on, we do have another voicemail from a viewer named Nate. So I guess we can go ahead and get into Nate's voicemail here. Let's see what he has to say about DCA.
Hey guys, my name is Nate. I'm a cast member at California Adventure. I work at Goofy Sky School. I wanted you guys to talk about what you think they should go, like what direction you think they should go with in the Paradise Park area. Like it's been kind of ignored for a while between the Golden Zephyr, swings, jellyfish, and Goofies. That whole area I feel like has so much potential to be integrated into Paradise or Pixar Pier. I just think I just want to hear you guys' thoughts on that.
All right, thank you, Nate. Fellow, or I guess not fellow. I'm not a cast member. I don't know why I said that.
Fellow to me. Fellow to me.
Fellow to
reach out, Nate, as soon as you can. Yeah, reach out. But Nate. I mean, in terms of the whole Pixar Park area, I think that the reason that the pier just suddenly ends at the end of the Incredicoaster is purely that whole budget issue. That entire area of the whole Pixar Park, which was very hastily sort of just they just threw the name out there. I don't see that area changing just yet, but as soon as they change the Paradise Pier Hotel into the Pixar Pier Hotel, which is going to happen at some point, or even if they build a new hotel, that transformation will kind of begin that change of the rest of the pier. I think that everything through Little Mermaid, even Little Mermaid as an attraction, I think has a short lifespan because it no longer fits in at all with the park. It is the only sort of, Renaissance. It didn't even when they opened it, it didn't make too much sense to me. Like I understood, okay, you're putting in the San Francisco section next to the waterfront. Okay. But I guess you have World of Color. So I guess, that shows up, but it was always the sort of thing of like, well, it's a new Fantasyland over in Disney World and it has a great facade and it has an amazing queue over there. So you're just, throwing it into a building over here. I don't know. I don't even know if that attraction is going to get saved at all, or if they'll bulldoze that entire area and put in something new. But if they were to continue the trend of just re-theming the attractions that they already have, Jumping Jellyfish to Finding Dory or Finding Nemo is an obvious suggestion. Makes a lot of sense just with the characters, jumping on the jellyfish. The Flying Zephyr, I think, is an easy retheme to Up and the Spirit of Adventure. In fact, the Corn Dog Castle could become Doug's Dogs, and they could sell corn dogs there or hot dogs.
Yes.
Think of in the film that they get the hot dog there. Right, it would be cool to have that sort of Zeppelin aesthetic on the outside in some way. And just continuing, you have a little Up neighborhood. Again, that was sort of the concept with Pixar Pier, and just continuing that forward. every area would be sort of a neighborhood. I always thought that the pizza place that they have there, if you put a dome over that area and you decided, all right, we're redoing Tomorrowland, we're just going to lift the rocket and we're going to put it over here. It makes a lot more sense for you to put Pizza Planet with an actual arcade right next to Pixar Pier than to have it sitting in the middle of Tomorrowland. Now, I think that might change based off of the fact that there's a Lightyear movie coming in from Pixar. But in general, just as Pixar Pier sort of spreads throughout that side of the park, we'll definitely see those changes. I think Goofy Sky School is one of those attractions that as it ages, similar to Primeval Whirl over at Animal Kingdom, it'll eventually be an attraction that closes. You know, those types of coasters don't normally last too long. They're actually mostly built in terms of, they're built as, you know, temporary coasters for fairs. So they're never really meant to be long-term solutions. And that's one of those things in terms of the area of space. In the end, one of the pitches that I posted on Twitter recently is the idea of a Fantasy Springs, which is the land that's being built in Tokyo Disney Sea. Originally, they were going to think about doing Galaxy's Edge, but the people over at Tokyo did not like the idea of Galaxy's Edge that much in the end. Instead, they decided to go with classic animation properties and are building this Fantasy Springs expansion. And I think the idea of some sort of Pixar Springs across Disney Way and into that parking lot would make a lot of sense for the backside of Pixar Pier. And instead of doing sort of the neighborhood aesthetic the way they have of small immersive lands based off of Pixar films, thinking of a film like Coco, that you could actually dedicate a space to building an authentic Mexican village and actually putting in a Coco dark ride, you know, from the get-go that's actually built for that pavilion, even, you know, using that as the investment to then transform the Mexico pavilion over at Epcot. You have the film Luca that's coming out with the Riviera aesthetic, and that Riviera aesthetic could continue to a new Pixar Pier hotel that would connect to the whole seaside, the whole, you know, oceanside idea, the whole idea of connecting to the ocean and the fun of the beach. You know, you can connect several Pixar properties to that. But if a Pixar
Disney
property,
Sea after all,
a little bit. I mean, California Adventure is probably the closest that we're going to get here. But in that case, you know, looking at, you know, okay, how can we continue these things forward? But, you know, anytime that a Pixar property isn't getting represented on the pier itself, you know that it could be saved for something else, that they could put it anywhere else in Pixar Park. So just connecting the dots between which properties would connect there it's a fun game to play.
Yeah, wow. Very well said. And just shout out to Goofy Sky School, though. Well, good. Good.
Yeah. I think I'll be one of the first.
Take you up.
I think I'll be one of the only people who will miss Goofy Sky School in the world if they end up getting
I was just going to say, shout out to Goofy Sky School. I have very fond memories of going on that when it was Mulholland Madness.
Yes.
I've actually made a very good recreation and Planet Coaster of the track. Of the track layout, so
just the track. So it's not as impressive if you put.
No, I mean I can't do the scenery, but the track is totally accurate. I'm very proud of myself. Anyway, did that a couple years ago. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I don't know. I thought Nate of Goofy Sky School would find that interesting.
I'm sure Nate finds it interesting. Yeah. Yeah, anyways, I guess, unless you guys have any final thoughts in, you know, DCA's 20-year anniversary. Yeah, I love DCA. I guess I always look back wondering if I would like it more if I visited DCA 1.0, like, as a kid, or if I would like it more as if I visited as, like, an adult, because, you know, there's, like, alcohol there. I guess that's sort of an incentive for most adults to visit DCA. but yeah, that's sort of an interesting question that I always think of in my head. You know, it's probably a dumb question because I would probably hate it if I were like me right now visiting DCA 1.0 back then, just because, you know, back when I was a kid, I didn't necessarily care about the theming and all that kind of stuff. But, you know,
right.
You never know.
Hey, but as John Hench said, he liked it better as a parking lot.
Ooh. There it is. That's what we're ending this segment is that quote.
No, wow. DCA love today. DCA love.
Nothing but love for
DCA love. DCA's love. DCA is life.
Yes. Exactly. Mark said in chat, DCA is almost old enough to drink, so that's kind of cool. Shout out to DCA next year.
Wow.
We'll have to
next year.
Yeah, we'll have to take DCA.
That's funny.
I
think we did this a little too early for DCA.
Oh yeah,
a little too early. A little too early. No, I can't wait for the California Adventure mugs. You know, I can't wait to drink out of the bear's head. That would be a cool mug.
That would be cool.
Oh,
that'd be really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, I could design a mug for you. A DCA mug. Yeah.
Yeah.
Get on it, Disney. Hire this man for making mugs. But yeah, I guess we can sort of wrap up this discussion unless you guys have any final thoughts, final blurbs you'd like to say before we end off here.
I think we're good.
All right.
I think that's about it.
Well, thank you to everybody for tuning in to today's episode. Thank you to everybody who sent in the voicemail. Great voicemails. Happy to hear all of your lovely voices. You know, it's different when we're listening to somebody say something as opposed to like reading it off in chat. Feels more personal almost. So again, 575-386-5814. You can always call in, you know, over the week that we're not live. We'll listen to your voicemail in the next episode. Maybe you're listening to this on a Wednesday and you think of a funny DCA story. Go ahead and call in. Tell us. We'll laugh about it next week on the show. It'll be a sad
DCA story.
Or a sad
we'll cry
DCA
about
story.
it with you on the show.
I have a sad DCA story. I was in Grizzly Peak, and I was listening to a couple fighting on the bench in Grizzly Peak, and it's like, how can you fight in this beautiful redwood forest? You know, just sit down,
beautiful.
Look around. Yeah. Kind of sad. I don't know what happened to them. If they're listening, they can comment if they're still together.
I think they're here.
Oh,
right?
There it is. Gary Vaughn.
Mark? Wasn't it you?
Was it Mark? It might have been Mark. Anyways, thank you all for coming to today's episode of Matterhorn Mondays. Links to all of our social media will be down in the description. And Freddy, if you'd like to give a final little outro for yourself, the kind of content you make, the floor is yours, my friend.
Yeah. So again, I'm the host of Imagine Tomorrow, which is a podcast that covers where futurism and theme parks collide. I've been going on sort of a retrospective of my visit to Walt Disney World several weeks ago, and talking about the different parks that are over there in Orlando, talking about, you know, how those parks are at present during COVID, and how they'll change into the future, you know, making a few predictions. I've had several, you know, fun guests on board, and those are releasing every Tuesday and Thursday. So there'll be another episode out tomorrow. And once we're done with that, we will move back into the Marvel theme park universe, which is a look at the previous versions of how Marvel has been introduced into the theme parks, and then looking forward to Avengers Campus and what that's going to look like. Once we sort of wrap up that series, and if we're still not at the summer, we're still not towards the reopening of the parks, that's when I will begin the new series that is California Dreamin', which I just teased here on the Matterhorn Map podcast. And California Dreamin' will be a retrospective on DCA and looking at it and analyzing it and appreciating it for what it is. And, you know, if you're looking to contact me, you can reach me at Helmsman Freddy on Twitter. It's at Terminus Terra for the podcast. That's about it.
Alrighty, links will be down below for Freddy's Twitter as well as his podcasts as well. Freddy makes great stuff, you guys. Freddy's a great guy. We love having him on the show. Yeah, comment down below if you'd like to see Freddy back in the future. We'd be more than happy to have him here on our show.
What are they saying? I never want to see him. Oh, okay, maybe.
Oh. That's the wrong chat you're reading, Jeremy. That's something else, I think.
Oh, they're talking about me. Oh. Yeah.
Oh.
Well, yeah, you guys know the drill. Links to all of our socials will be down in the description as well. And I think on that note, thank you all for coming to today's episode. And as always, have a great big beautiful